happy to have Veronica and the girls back here with us today, where they should be, but it's pleasant to have them here. Well, I've saved this sermon for quite a while to preach this today. My wife doesn't like for me to preach on subjects that are where people are observing pagan holidays. I don't know if this is a pagan holiday or not. But anyway, I thought we'd talk about gifts for our mothers. Some of you have probably thought about that a little bit in one way or another. Maybe we can think about it in a different way. I want to read this to you. I think I can get through it. We'll give it a whirl. It's not, of course, not written by me. The other day, I was ricocheting slowly off the blue walls of this room, moving as if underwater from typewriter to piano, from bookshelf to envelope lying on the floor, when I found myself in the L section of the dictionary, where my eyes fell upon the word lanyard. No cookie nibbled by a French novelist could send one into the past more suddenly, where I sat at a workbench at a camp by a deep Adirondack lake, learning how to braid long, thin plastic strips into a lanyard, a gift from my mother. Most of us at one time were in some sort of outfit where you wove lanyards. I had never seen anyone use a lanyard or wear one if that's what you did with them. But that did not keep me from crossing strand over strand again and again until I had made a boxy red and white lanyard for my mother. She gave me life and milk from her breasts, and I gave her a lanyard. She nursed me in many a sick room, lifted spoons of medicine to my lips, laid cold face cloths on my forehead, and then led me out into the airy light and taught me to walk and swim. And I, in turn, presented her with a lanyard. Here are thousands of meals, she said, and here's clothing and a good education. And here is your lanyard, I replied, which I made with a little help from a counselor. Here's a breathing body and a beating heart, strong legs, bones, and teeth, and two clear eyes to read the world. She whispered. Here, I said, is the lanyard I made at camp. Here, I wish to say to her now, is a smaller gift. Not the worn truth that you can never repay your mother, but the rueful admission that when you took the two-tone lanyard from my hand, I was as sure as a boy could be that this useless, worthless thing I wove out of boredom would be enough to make us even. Let's think about some of the gifts we should be giving our mothers. First of all, we need to provide for them. We need to help her and see to the help of others to make sure she has what she needs day to day, especially as she grows older. As my mother has pointed out to me several times, there are, I think now, 10 widows in this church. These are mothers. 2 of those women, maybe 3, have no one to care for them. James 1:27 says, "Pure religion and undefiled before God and the Father is to visit the widows and fatherless." That's our obligation, to provide. 1 Timothy 5 and verse 8 says, "If any provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own house, he hath denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. So many times, if there are many children, we let the burden fall on one. But it's our obligation, each of us, if there are more than one child, to provide for their parent. We honor her with respect, in appreciating her, in valuing her. You know, as our mothers grow older, lose a lot of their capacity. They may be foolish. They may not remember what they did this morning. But it should be truly valued, and it should be understood. Everything she's done, it's not just the last 2-3 years. It's all your life. I am 73 now. I'm not going to admit that anymore. But the things my mother has done the last 2 or 3 years are nothing compared to those 73 years. In Ephesians 6, honor thy father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise. You can give her that. Doesn't cost anything. We don't despise her old age. She can't do everything she used to do. She can't cook. In my mother's case, we've even turned off her stove for fear she'd leave it on. So she's microwaving everything to heat it up. So she can't do everything she used to do. Do you despise the fact that she's grown old and isn't what she once was? As she's growing older, she becomes more difficult to care for in her abilities, slowing abilities, in her lessening strength. I still resent the fact that my mother can touch the floor better than I can, but there's a lot of things she can't do that I can. In Proverbs 23 and verse 22, hearken unto thy father that begat thee, and despise not thy mother when she is old. There can be frustrating times, difficult times, maybe expensive times. It does take time. One of the gifts that we can give our mother is to leave her. That sounds awful, doesn't it? But your mother raised you to build your own family, to build your own home. And she taught you that that would happen. She knew that whole time you were young that that was the direction things were going. They always have gone the way they were intended to go. And so when she gets worn out with dealing with you as a teenager, which is really kind of taxing, there's a time for some rest for her, where she isn't wiping your fanny and your nose, tending to every little disease and making you meals constantly, and dealing with all your stuff as a teenager. It's time to relax for her a little bit. And so we leave her. The Lord intended that. He says in Genesis 2 and verse 24, therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. So just as surely as she loved you and will always be your mother, she expected you to leave. These days, a lot of kids don't leave, but they should. We should. Give our mothers some rest. There are times when we have to correct our mothers, when something's just wrong. You know, Jesus corrected his own mother. We occasionally need to correct our mothers as she speaks or acts in some way contrary to the Lord and his will. You don't have to agree with everything she says, and you should correct her sometimes. Notice some of the times when Jesus did this. In Luke 2:48 and 49, when they saw him, this was when he was 12. When they saw him, they were amazed, and his mother said unto him, Son, why hast thou dealt with us, thus with us? Behold, thy father and I have sought thee sorrowing. And he said unto them, How is it that ye sought me? Knew ye not that I should be about my Father's business? In John 2, I remember one time I was a teenager. And I gave a ride home to a friend, male friend, so it wasn't romantic, from school, and we got to talking about religion. And we just sat on the side of the road and talked about it a while. And finally, I took him to his house, and then I drove to mine. There was a police car there. She had called the cops. John's not home on time. Something's wrong. With his dead body in a wrecked car is laying somewhere on the side of the road. She was just sure. And I walked in there and said, What? I was talking religion with a guy. It was part of growing up. But again, in John 2, the third day there was a marriage in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. And both Jesus was called and his disciples to the marriage. And when they wanted wine, the mother of Jesus saith unto him, They have no wine. Jesus saith unto her, Woman, what have I to do with thee? Mine hour is not yet come. It's not time for me to declare who I am. His mother saith unto the servants, she doesn't argue with him. She says to the servants, Whatsoever he says to you to do, you do it. Of course, Jesus turned the water into wine. But he corrected her. He says, You're pushing a little bit here, Mom. He was 30 at the time, of course. She was pushing. Your mother does push even when you're older. We correct her sometimes. And it's understood. We love her less than we love the Lord. And if you've got the right sort of mother, that's what she intended for you to do. She knew that you were going to love the Lord more than her. And she taught you that your whole youth. That the first thing was to love the Lord. And she came second. Knowing that in doing so, we'll do what's best. She knew that if we love the Lord and put him first, we'll do our best for her by following his will in everything we do. You can give that gift to her. Mom, you taught me to love the Lord. Why do we do the things for our mothers? Because they're always so wonderful, pleasant to deal with? No. There might have been 2 times a couple of you have hung up on your mother. Or you've had a tiff. I don't think I'm saying anything out of school, am I? But you always come back. You love the Lord more. And because you love the Lord, you'll do what's good and right about your mom. In Matthew 10, Jesus said, "Think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. For I am come to set a man at variance against his father, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and a man's foes shall be they of his own household." You're going to have some arguments. You may have arguments over your life or your conduct or your religion. If you and your mother are different religiously, you're going to have arguments. He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. You see, as much as your mother, if she's a Christian, loves you, she loves the Lord more than you. You think you're first, but you're not. You're actually third. She loves the Lord first. She loves her husband next, and then you. He that taketh not his cross and followeth after me is not worthy of me. He that findeth his life shall lose it. He that loseth his life for my sake shall find it. We set such great store and such great pride by our family. The Lord said that you must be willing to lose that relation in order to serve Him. Are you willing to lose it? Are you willing to put Him first, head of your family? We give her joy. I like the saying in this picture, children will not remember you for the material things you provided, but the feeling that you cherished. That's what a mother gives you. You don't really care about inheritance or money. You don't care about stuff or things. You care about the fact that you felt loved. And it's made life worthwhile. We give her joy when we walk in wisdom and in righteousness, showing that as our lips speak the right things. Notice these passages. In Proverbs 23, the father of the righteous shall greatly rejoice, and he that begetteth a wise child shall have joy of him. Thy father and thy mother shall be glad, and she that bare thee shall rejoice. Oh, can you imagine the pain of having a willful, ignorant son who lives in sin and rebellion? Do you know the heartache you're bringing to your mother by doing those things? The damnation you're bringing to your own soul that she sees and knows and fought against. She'll be joyful when she sees you living righteously, wisely. In Proverbs 23, my son, if thine heart be wise, my heart shall rejoice. Even mine, yea, my reins shall rejoice when thy lips speak right things. Sophia, we're going to miss you and Isaac. Give her joy. Get some smarts. Wise up. Try to live a godly life. Don't make a fool of yourself. Don't get in trouble with the law. Don't run with a wrong crowd. Booze isn't your friend. Marry wisely so that you can live a good life. Pass that on. Oh, that'll make her heart happy. She'll speak of it often. She'll think of it often. She may not see you. You may not live in the same city. But she'll say, hey, all the way from Mexico, my daughter has a son and a good husband, and she's living a good life. And she'll be happy. She'll grumble that she doesn't get to see you very much. She'll be happy, knowing that it has all been in the direction she wanted it to go. We keep faith alive in our mothers and in us, just as it was alive perhaps in her mother and now in her. And now that faith is living and glowing and growing in us just as well. Notice what the scripture says in 2 Timothy 1 in verse 5. When I call to remembrance the unfeigned faith that is in thee, which dwelt first in thy grandmother Lois and thy mother Eunice, and I am persuaded that is in thee also. What a heritage to keep that faith through those women, to be faithful to it. I like this picture too. I have a picture of my dad. My dad hated the picture. But I took it one time when we went on a trip to Florida. And the one time I took him out to the seashore, I took a picture of him. The wind was blowing his hair. He hated that. He also disliked Indiana primarily because of the wind. We lived over there and across the street. There weren't any trees then. They were all little bitty things. And he claimed that the wind in Indiana blew about 10 months a year. And his hair was like mine has become, and it just blew all to pieces. But I love that picture. I like this one. It's a picture of someone's mother looking in her son's eyes. We give our mothers rest and delight to her soul as she's taught us. She corrected us when we walk in the wisdom of the Lord. In Proverbs 29, correct thy son, and he shall give thee rest. Do you realize how your mother worries about you? How she prays about you day and night, that you will have listened to the wisdom she shared with you and that you'll live it. She's able to rest and relax a bit when she sees good happening in your life. When she sees you successful and moving on. We call her blessed. We tell her of our love for her. I suspect many of you early this morning or at some point today will talk to your mother, if possible, and you'll tell her you love her. And let her know how much you appreciate the things she did and the fact that you shared life together. If you haven't done it already, I know you're planning on it. In Proverbs 31, please don't let today be the only day you do that. That would be silly. This is just another day. Somebody, legislator somewhere, said this should be Mother's Day. In Proverbs 31, her children arise up, the worthy woman, and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praiseth her. You call your mom blessed today. And make sure that she's happy. My wife says that I need to review more. I don't review enough. Didn't you say that? And so we're going to review today. Kids, pay attention. If you didn't catch all of these, you might see them. We need to provide for our mothers. We need to honor them. You don't have any business despising the fact that she's grown old and lost facility. We leave for our own families and provide for them as she has directed us. We correct her in love because our mother's not always right. We love her less than we love the Lord. First things have to come first. We give her joy in life when she sees us walking the correct paths. We keep faith alive in her as she shared that with us. We give her rest when she can relax and see we're on the right road. And finally, we call her blessed. This day isn't Mother's Day. I trust you realize it. That's just what people call it. This is the day we remember a mother's son, a woman who stood at the cross watching her son die. This is the day we remember that son and the sacrifice he made and the gift she gave. But you know, has it ever struck you? You know, we make so much fun sometimes of the Catholics and the fact that they've deified Mary. But has it ever struck you, of all the millions of women living on the earth and hundreds of thousands of Jewish women at the time Jesus was to be born, that this woman was chosen? Has it ever struck you how she raised him for 30 years and loved him and wondered and did all that to watch him die for all of us? If you're not a Christian, you should be. It's high time. Come while we stand and sing.
While we pray and while we plead, while you seal souls deep need, while your